Welcome to podcast number 25. Once again, I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to these. And again, all the comments, and emails, and messages are great. I do appreciate them. I want to take this time to thank my sponsors. Oh, that's right. I don't have any sponsors. Why I don't have any sponsors? Well, one, nobody's offered to sponsor me. And two, if I did have a sponsor, they'd have to put up with my crap. And I'm basically not going to compromise on any of this stuff. So here's how it goes. All right, no bullshit, no music. Let's dive into this. All right, so this podcast is one that's come about just because I've made a lot of mentions on focus, on specifically focus and being present. So let's talk about that, and let's see how you can put that into play for yourself. And more importantly than focus is great. Focus is fantastic. Do you know what the really hard part is? Getting refocused is the hard part. Let's face it, you're all jacked up. You want to go ride, street ride, can't wait to go, track riding, whatever it is. You get all jacked up to get ready, and then you get super hyper focused. What screws you up? Getting unfocused, right? You get unfocused, then it's like, well, okay, how do I get refocused again? We're going to talk quite a bit about that. But before we do, we're going to dive into the focus part. And the nice thing about this is this is really part of our knowledge objectives. Skill objectives, the actual physically riding the motorcycle. There's a ton of skill objectives that we can work on, but this is knowledge objectives. This is what you can do off the bike, and that's something that I wrote down when I kind of did my background for this. Is there's things that have to be established off the bike. You're not going to get focus on the bike, and it's very difficult to get refocused on the bike unless you have a process for that. So listening to these podcasts and putting this into play is a fairly massive deal. So I appreciate everybody taking the time to do that. So, and actually wanting to work on knowledge objectives. It's amazing how much better you can get on the bike, off the bike. So, all right. So focus is great, but focus on what? And this all goes down the path of having something to focus on, and having something to focus on that is technical, and having something to focus on that is technical that stems from your goals. Okay, so that, again, super ambiguous statement. Let's dive into that. Stemming from your goals, that could be a long-term goal. It could be a short-term goal. It could be, I'm going to focus on being smoother. Hey, that is a goal that we're all working on all the time, especially as we go quicker. Fantastic goal. Okay, so I want to work on being smoother at my initial throttle, my initial brakes, my end of braking, how I move across the seat, my body timing. Break that down even further. Short-term goals. Short-term goals end up even being, that's something that, especially for street riders, this is a massive deal, right? Because your conditions are constantly changing. You want to go ride, and however the conditions may be, maybe it rained out, maybe there's gravel, maybe you're going on a group ride, suddenly somebody new shows up that you don't know, right? So looking at what those short-term goals are as much as what the long-term goals are, and making those all fit together. The long-term goals can be something that is, again, encompasses whatever your long-term goal or strategy is, or thinking about what I'm not good at. And you think, okay, what am I not good at? And that's what I'm going to, get focused on working on. That can be a super long-term thing. But in the moment, maybe it just rained out. Maybe you're on the track and it just rained out, and you're going to go out and the track is wet. That focus has to be corner by corner, right? There has to be corner by corner focus. So looking at it not only in the long term, but in the short term as well. And that all happens again before you get on the bike. And we're going to give you some triggers for that as well. So now that you're kind of understanding what focus is, or at least have something to focus on, which hopefully it's something very technical. The problem with emotional focus is I want to go win that race. That it's too ambiguous, right? There's too much going on. There's too much going on for that really to be as effective as you want it to be. So focus on some of these technical aspects, and that is where really the magic starts to happen. And of course, where do those techniques come from? Yep, all those fundamentals that we've got going on that I know you've listened to all those podcasts on. So let's give you now something how to start executing that focus, and really where that comes from is having some sort of a trigger that makes that happen. And once you've decided what you're going to go work on, what you're going to focus on, is you've got to be able to turn your brain on for that. You've got to be able to be present for that. You have to be in the moment to make that happen. And, again, if you're thinking of what happened behind you, well, then your thought process is going to be late. If you're thinking too far in front of you, then you're not going to be in the moment. It's being in the moment to make that happen. So what's a trigger for that? You have all sorts of triggers for that. This is a personal trigger for you. I'll tell you what mine is, and I'll tell you what some other riders' triggers are, but it's something that turns your brain on. It's something that puts you in the moment. And for me, people that have ridden with me, you'll see me, I roll out of hot pits. I may stop, talk to my student, whatever it may be. I'll roll out of hot pits. I stand back up in the foot pegs. As I roll out of hot pit, I sit back down. I am completely focused. I am in the moment. I've now shut everything away outside of me, and I'm only focused on my task at hand. That's it. It's like flipping a switch. Scott Russell talks about the same thing, and I know I've mentioned this in some of the other podcasts, which is Scott, you can sit there and talk to Scott. Hey man, how's it going? And as soon as Scott flips down that face shield, completely different person, completely different. Some of the other riders that I work with, they'll roll out of the pits, they'll tug on their leathers a certain way. What's Valentino Rossi do? Right? Rossi walks up to his bike, kneels by the foot peg, sits there for a moment, puts his plan into play, gets on his bike and go rides. He is not focused on anything else. He's not focused on how many millions of dollars he's going to be making for that day or how many autographs he's going to sign. No, he's focused on his exits. He's focused on how the bike is going to work. He's got a specific, focused plan for when he goes and rides. So establish a trigger for that. So now that you've established a trigger for it, right, before you turn your key on, when you pull your clutch lever in, when you put it in gear, whatever it may be, whatever turns your brain on, now that you've got that, now we need some report cards for that as well. And again, those report cards can be established off the bike, right? Whether it's apexes or whether it's you're working on initial controls, give yourself something to make that happen. So establish some report cards for whatever your focus is on. And a massive deal for you to be able to know what you were focusing on, you were able to go execute. So let's take it a step further. You come back from a session, maybe you come in for a street ride even. Write yourself some notes. And ask yourself, how am I doing? How am I doing? Did I actually go out and execute my focus? Think about that. Execute my focus. Did you make that happen? By writing yourself some notes, you're going to personally commit to that action. So handwrite yourself some notes. Ask yourself, how am I doing? Did I stay focused? Did I make that happen? So just a little bit of recap on focus, right? So let's realize that a lot of this focus has to happen off the bike, right? Getting focused, working on a technical aspect of your riding. Give yourself something that turns that on in your riding, whether it's when you turn your key on, push the starter button, whatever it is, give yourself something that turns that focus on, and then give yourself some report cards for that focus. Yeah, this can be a game changer for many, many people. So I want to go a little bit further with that and talk about the next step. And I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast is refocus. You realize that's actually the hard part. I just spent a bunch of minutes talking about focus. Refocus is the hard part, right? You get all jacked up to get focused. Boom, you're focused. As soon as somebody passes you close, oh my God, a truck drives by you too close on the street, whatever it is. Oh my God, I'm out of focus. So this is something that I've worked on in the last year quite a bit, at least in my own riding and in my own life. And what I've done to establish that is really where it comes down to is your eyes. How I get refocused, how I work with my students on focus is our eyes. When we have a set of established reference points, or we have something that we can look to, it starts that process again. I've literally spent the last 75 yoga sessions working on focus. I'm basically trapped in a 110 degree room for 90 minutes. And working on each one of these individual poses is insanely difficult, especially because I'm not very good at them, but I am getting better. And I work on my focus. So when you're in a pose and your eyes are laser beamed on the mirror in front of you, you've found your reference point. As soon as my eyes drop, guess what? My focus drops. And guess what? I fall out of my pose. So when I find myself doing that, I get my eyes reestablished and I laser beam back on, and then I start working my reference points, right? If I'm in a pose and I'm looking at my eyes, I look back to my foot, or I look back to my leg, or I look back to whatever I'm doing, and my eyes scan back and forth, then I'm in the moment. That is my refocus, right? So now it's like eyes, eyes, eyes. As soon as I get my eyes back up and working, I am refocused. This refocus trigger, right? For me, it's eyes. Okay, so on the track, what can we give you to get refocused? And we do a lot of things with that. One is get reestablished. When your fingers go to the brakes, you look into where you want to let off the brake, right? Make that happen, muscle memory. A great way to work on it, and I'll flat tell you what I work on with one of my Moto America riders, who happens to be winning a bunch of races this year, is when he gets refocused, when he gets out of focus, we go back to putting him back in focus by when his fingers go on the brake, it's entry, 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 entry. And that it's one word. That one word encompasses a massive amount of things, but that one word then stays with him all the way that he's using the front tire. The only thing he's concerned with is front grip at that point. Entry, 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 entry. There's my focus. As soon as his hand goes on the throttle, exit, 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 exit. His eyes are hunting back and forth, trying to find his exit point, and all he's doing is focus on the rear tire and rear grip. Exit, 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 exit. So when you get unfocused, we need a trigger to put you back into focus. And it can be, for me, eyes, right? As soon as my eyes drop, I get unfocused. As soon as my eyes come back into play, then I'm back in being focused. I'm back in being in the moment. And that's what we're looking for. So a bunch of good things there for you. Yes, it's funny. This is actually a fairly tough thing to do. But it's very simple for you to actually work on this and implement it. This is actually an easy one. The hardest part is you wanting to do it. So focusing, getting refocused, right? We spent quite a bit of time, right? I'm already at 13 minutes talking about this, and I think this is something that everybody can put into play. So let's get focused. Let's get focused on a technical aspect of your riding. Let's give you a trigger to get you into focus, and let's give you some report cards for it. Hard part, as we just talked about, is refocus. Getting refocused is so difficult. You know what? I'll tell you what. We're all doing a million things a day. I have a to-do list that I write up pretty much every day. It's a handwritten to-do list of everything that I do. We're going to stray away from it. That's just how life works. To get refocused, guess what I do? I go back to my to-do list. I get back to it and find out where I'm at it. That's my refocus. So you can put this into play in every aspect of your life, and especially on the motorcycle, as we're going to give you some triggers on the bike to go back and get refocused.